We live in a fast-paced and hectic world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control. How do you manage all the competing pressures without losing sense of yourself? How do you stay focused enough to not only plot a path, but follow it? Welcome to Master Your Life, a show that offers inspiration, insight, and intelligence, as well as success stories from many walks of life that can show you how you can control your own destiny. Our knowledgeable and entertaining host and her guests give practical advice that you can use every day in the quest to master your life. Now, here's your host, Leaha Mattinson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Master Your Life, the show of insight, intelligence, and inspiration, where I ask you each episode to consider who is it you are right now and who is it you are most aspiring to be. Are there things in your life that you would love to tweak, but you just don't know quite how to tweak them? Well, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce my guest for this episode, Krasi Attasio. Hi, Krasi. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Leah. Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Krasi is an absolute favorite of mine, and I'm so delighted to bring her to my audience because she's an ancient Babylonian, Mesopotamian, Sumerian astrologer. And this is a lost art, but mainly it's a science. And so I wanted to bring Krasi's scientific knowledge to my audience because I know so many people struggle with barriers around why do I keep getting stuck doing the same thing over and over again and never actually getting out of getting the result that I want. And when I worked with Krasi, she helped me to have very deep insight about some of the things that were tripping me up and also some of my strengths. So it was a lot of fun. Krasi, I'm just delighted to talk about this.
Thank you. Very sweet of you. Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much.
So, I think a lot of people are really familiar with Western astrology. We've grown up and we've been looking at our sun signs for our whole life, and go, oh, like I'm a Pisces because I was born March 12th. But, then we read our little snippet of a horoscope and we actually think that's a portrait of ourselves until we understand that, oh, maybe it's not. Can you tell everyone what the difference is between maybe Western astrology and what you do? Yeah.
Yes. Astrology is the first and the most ancient science, as far as we know, of course. The first science, which comes from Hermes Trismegistus. Everyone knows about Hermes, Mercury, Hermes, Hermetic knowledge, but Hermes is known to have had 2 or 3 or more incarnations on Earth. One of his incarnations is before the Big Flood. We're talking about 7,000 years ago, maybe 5,500 years BC, when we had in ancient Sumer a king called 𝑸𝒖𝒐𝒕𝒂𝒃𝒍𝒆. And this king at that time, there is famous cuneiform tablet written in this Sumerian, Babylonian, Akkadian writing system. The way they write, with these scribes, and people maybe know about the king's lists, and those kings then would lived for hundreds or thousands of years. So we are not very sure about the timelines, indeed, because the time construct is something that is quite unclear and maybe even manipulated. So we do not know, but we know that this happened thousands of years ago, and King 𝑸𝒖𝒐𝒕𝒂𝒃 lived in the city called 𝑑𝒖𝒐𝒂𝒃. Now, this is a city which is where you have now contemporary Bulgaria and Romania. And where you have the known Black Sea, but at that time, before the flood, it was a sweet lake. It became Black Sea, and there is a very interesting esoteric meaning and spiritual meaning why it became a Black Sea, but this is another conversation. So it's very interesting. So he lived there, and he was a saint. He was beloved. He would rule this city Sipar, now 𝑑𝒖𝒐𝒂𝒃. At that time, this was the city Sipar. And all this, what I'm telling you, comes from translated cuneiform tablets of this ancient Sumerian language. And King 𝑸𝒖𝒐𝒕𝒂𝒃 was lifted on a throne of cedar, remember cedar, by the 2 divinities, which is the sun god and the god of the winds, which is the sun god is Shamash and Adad, and they lifted him And this was the first Hermes. They lifted him up in the sky, and they gave him a golden rod in his hands, and they gave him the knowledge of mathematics, astrology, divination, reading animal liver. There are also other cuneiform tablets which show how they would on the liver, how they would divide it into different sections, and each one would mean something. And so they had this knowledge. But see, mathematics and astronomy were equally important. So they gave him this knowledge of mathematics and astronomy, and then they told him that he should transmit this knowledge to the men of the known cities at that time, but only the ones that deserve it, the ones that have come from true blood, the ones that have decency and are healthy. So there was not just anyone could be astrologer at that time. So this is how we know 7,000 years ago, approximately, from where astrology came. And then in Egypt, approximately 900 BC, we know of a second incarnation of Hermes, because this knowledge, which came 5,500 BC, was forgotten due to many factors. You had the big flood, you see, we the humans tend to have these eras when we forget the knowledge. And now we're in a time, in a cycle when the knowledge comes back to us. Notice this, Leah.
Thank the gods, right? Or thank God.
Thank God.
Because we're needing it. And what I think is interesting is, and sad, maybe a bit, is that this knowledge should be transmitted to people who were decent. It's like the decency factor we have somehow completely, turned away from. And what I think is confusing for a lot of people when they look at ancient astrology, they see it as evil because they see it as a cult, and that's actually what all these black magicians are doing. And I think that, can you clarify?
It can be bad. They can be right, because every knowledge can be used twofold. You can really do good. You can enrich your knowledge, help others, and with knowledge you can help yourself, because once you know the details of your horoscope, you can change things. You know what to work on. But yes, it has this occult. Occult is not necessarily bad. Occult means hidden.
Yes.
Occult means hidden. It's not necessarily bad, but if we say that there is this, it can be used for bad purposes, of course, like any knowledge. So, of course, we choose to take only the bright light, divine part of this. But once you take the bad, you bear your own responsibility and circumstances afterwards, right?
Right. Well, thank you for clarifying that, because I think that's a hesitation why some people don't look at their astrology, is because they think it is a parallel with something akin to the devil, and you shouldn't know that information. It's like, nope, that was actually hijacked from us at some point. What's the history of why this original astronomy was and astrology was kind of hidden from the masses?
It was hidden. First, we had many centuries after that. You can see it evolved. 900 years before Christ, 800 something years before Christ, we had the second incarnation of Hermes, who was in Egypt at that time. It was another incarnation among many. And then he gave again, he came to remind us of the real astrology. But here comes a big bracket, Leah, because there is this sidereal astrology. What people wonder, what is this sidereal astrology? The Vedic Indians use sidereal astrology with slight differences. What is sidereal astrology? Sidereal comes starry, means starry. It comes from literally, like, you look at the sky, what you see on the sky now. For example, now you see that the moon is in Gemini. Immediately in your astrological star chart, you would see, and then any configuration of the stars literally would be looking the same way on the chart that you read to the people that you want to inform. But this is sidereal. What happened actually is, of course, there is infiltration of the evil always. You know, like you know how the real Masons, the Freemasons, started like something very lofty. They started like people who had talents. They just wanted to build society, to help the knowledge to be spread or kept. And then there was infiltration and finished. This became something very dark. The same happened with astrology. It was meant only for good and divine and divination and help and health, and it was infiltrated. How? Well, there is a version which comes from amazing researcher, scientist, astrologer Cyril Fagan. I think he lived in the 1960s, around this time. And he was sidereal astrologer researching the ancient roots of astrology. And we know that the modern astrologers, the modern tropical astrologers, built their knowledge on the knowledge of Ptolemy. Everyone knows Ptolemy with his Tetrabiblos, I mean the astrologers. But where is the key here, and where the big confusion came? And I believe it was this sort of infiltration, which I'm telling you about. Yes. It is, Ptolemy was living around the 1st century after Christ, AD. When we know that the point of the spring equinox for the northern hemisphere was in the 0 degrees of Aries, and nothing confusing here yet. But then the Babylonians had different zodiacs. They invented the first zodiac, which was sidereal, starry. Every star of importance you would see there. They would make divisions of the houses as we know them. But they had also this zodiac, which was not zodiac, and which was something like tropical ecliptic, where instead of zodiacal constellations, you had the lunar months. So instead of having, for example, Aries, you would have the month of Nisan, or instead of having Pisces, you have the first month of Nisan or Nisanu. But what happened is that Ptolemy decided to develop a new zodiacal system, and he subtracted the lunar month with the zodiacal signs, which the Babylonians would use for predictive purposes, for the analysis of the eclipses, searching for omens, and so on. What the tropical ecliptic of the Babylonians was that they simply took the lunar months, and in the middle of every lunar month, in the 15th degree, they would put the equinoxes and the solstices. And from there, they would depart, and they would see where certain eclipse would take place or other celestial event. Eclipses are not happening only with the moon and the sun. You can have eclipse with Jupiter and the moon. You can have other sorts of eclipses. So any deviation from the normal starry configuration, they would apply on their tropical ecliptic. And then Ptolemy took this, and he would take, and like I told you, he would take the lunar months and instead would put the zodiac. Brilliant. But this happened while he was alive. And when was this? This was around 100 AD. When when the equinox was in the 0 degree, Aries, brilliant. And since then, guess what? Copy-paste. Copy-pasted the situation, not taking into consideration that the Earth rotates, there is an axis of 23 degrees, that there is all these changes which are happening astronomically very, very slowly indeed, are not taken into consideration. And I don't say that the modern tropical ecliptic of Ptolemy, which most modern astrologers use, don't work. It works. But it is, see what I mean?
Yeah, it takes you a bit away from because it takes you away from knowing, though. Or knowing what, and maybe to explain it to people, if you go and get your birth chart, one of my confusions is I went and got my birth chart done just on through the tropical regular Western astrology, and went, okay, so like I'm a Pisces, this with a, moon rising, and my ascendant is here. But when I actually went through a different birth chart calculator, it came out completely differently. So then I'm confused, going, okay, who am I, and how am I supposed to take some information out of this that's going to help me? So that was part of the reason why I'd reached out to you, because after watching several, let's say probably, weeks of videos, going, okay, like what actually rings true? There's this thing, I think, that I encourage people to do, is to tap into that spiritual knowing that we all have, and go, what rings true and sounds true for you? And as you listen to more astrological reports, or, the breakdowns of planets and etc., you can kind of get an understanding of what doesn't sound true and what does sound true. And so as I was listening to your broadcast, I went, okay, this actually seems like in alignment with what I think would make sense, this most ancient thing. And because nature does keep happening, it's like there's transformation keeps happening. Things don't stop moving. Things don't quit changing. And the idea that things would become fixed in this kind of bizarre way, and then we're just all going to stop, stop and stand still, it just made no sense to me at all. So then when I reached out to you, and you had me go through the birth chart calculator that you use, which will be available on my website, so people can just go there, I came out with a very different birth chart, and went, oh, well, now this is a tool that I can use, because I can look at all of these aspects of me and where they actually lie, and consider and contemplate how to navigate around the what we might call landmines, because there are there's some things that could be landmines in your life. But before, I was trying to go around these landmines in my life using a completely different zodiac, and going, like, it didn't make any sense at all. Like, I should be a Pisces sun, and I just like not wishy-washy. Like, there's just things that didn't fit, that I went, this doesn't fit. Aquarius sun, that fits, so getting this better appreciation for myself also. And so I think, again, why I wanted to bring you on to talk about what you do is because I'm sure everyone who listens to my shows, who wants to master their life, is going through these same sort of conversation internally, and going, why do I, why am I confused? And so to bring clarity is to be able to see that roadmap on a piece of paper and go, okay, this is what it looks like, and this is actually how I can do something with it, and and make good decisions and have some good judgments. I'm a farm girl too, Krasi. So I started doing astronomy when I was a little girl, laying on laying outside or looking out my window, because I could see all the stars. And then, as we move through life, we forget, we let go of our connection. A lot of people let go of their connection to the stars. Very much Mother Earth, the connection to Mother Earth is promoted, like look down, take into account Mother Earth, but it's not that looking up. And so this has been a good reminder for me to look up and appreciate what's up here, and then what you can do with it. So that the idea of working with a living system also made sense to me, as opposed to the sitting in front of your computer to figure everything out, which I think is the other beauty of what you do. So maybe I'm hijacking the conversation, but I'm just very excited to get people back to nature.
No, exactly. No, but what you say is exactly correct. Yes. The real astrology, which never changes, the astrology of Hermes, of the ancients, is just looking at, observing the sky. They would observe the phases of the planets, not only the transits, because now in our modern times we look where certain planet is, but what about the phase of the planets? Phase would say, according to the sun, some planets disappear, they get burned in the rays of the sun. These are phases, and then symbolically they are born again, and all this has meanings and would be represented by different divinity, and all these divinities actually in a way influence our lives. And yes, this is the real earth, connection with the earth, but connection with the sky. And when we know well our horoscopes, we know which planets, what to ask from them, in what way to observe them, how to communicate, if you want, with them, in this not submissive way, but just say, look, in my chart you do this, please reconsider is your aspects or your influences on me, not in a submissive way, because we as humans are creators together in one with God, so we shouldn't be submissive, but we can do a lot in a way, exactly as you say, this connection with sky and earth.
Sure, consciously. And so I'll share with the audience one of the things in my chart, just to give a solid, concrete example of this. So anyone who's listened knows maybe I've been divorced a couple of times. Relationships have been really hard for me. Business has been really hard on me because there's been some explosions. But here I got my birth chart, and in the 7th house, we could maybe just describe that a little bit. But I have, Mars and Saturn, both in that house, in the 7th house. And so can you tell what that is, just so people can go, oh, that's what that is? What is Mars and Saturn in the 7th?
Yes, actually,
in Pisces.
well, these are the two. Well, there are many, yes. Well, there are many, you see many details around Mars and Saturn in your 7th house. These are the two malefic, means not very good, not very benevolent planets. Benevolent would be, for those who don't know, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury. They would give blessing and abundance, love, money, and communication skills. But then you have Saturn, who is giving us limitations, who is teaching us discipline, and who is showing where in this lifetime we need to work a bit more on in which direction we need to work more, what we need to work out. Saturn is the last planet. When you look at the spheres of the planets, how they are organized, Saturn is the one who is on the highest position. And I'm not counting here the trans-Saturnian planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I'm talking until Saturn. Mm-hmm. Not that the ancients didn't know about them. This is another story, but yes, they would look only until Saturn. So yes, Saturn has his how you say, has his
rings.
His rings. Saturn has his rings, and when you think what they represent, obviously they are borderlines, boundaries. They say, stop here. You have to stop and think, work out something. And in your life, maybe in your past lifetimes, there are things which you maybe didn't have the time to learn, and you're given now the chance to go through these experiences with husbands or relationships that taught you something. Mm-hmm. And it is not necessarily bad. Probably this is very good for your soul. Depends how you learn.
Exactly. And so here's the thing that I went, if I had only known that those things were sitting there in my 7th house, I would have handled my relationships differently. So this is the insight that a properly done birth chart can give you, is you can go, oh my gosh, well, I can see that I might respond with this Martian kind of response to people, or I might invite people that have that, energy in their lives into my personal relationships. But I didn't know that about myself. So when people continue to show up, that I would let in personal relationships, in intimacy, and then they would do things that would be, explosive and not good.
Yeah,
I couldn't get why. But now that I see it, I go, oh, that makes sense. So then I could do something about it now that I have that insight. It's quite profound.
It is even deeper, Leah, because Saturn is the father figure. So we go back there to see what is the model that you need to improve there, how you perceived your father, what is the lesson that he gave you, and that this same model maybe has an impact on your private life. So it goes really, it's very serious.
Yeah, it is, and very serious. Yes. So I think, again, it's like where you learn up in Western astrology, when you see your little snippet in the paper, and it's this little, weekly or even daily horoscope. They're so, what do you call it? There's not really any importance given to how much power this tool has. And again, credit to your work. And you know what? I actually didn't even say, you're a doctor. You have your doctorate in this.
I have a PhD in organizational psychology, which is not astrology.
Okay.
But, yes.
Organizational psychology, but you've taken lots of training in reading these cuneiform tablets, and so you're a dedicated practitioner. This is something that you've dedicated your life to, and I caught one of your interviews where you said you were taking an astrology course, and it was about 6 months in, and the person who was teaching you said, "Well, that's it, we're done now." And you were like, "What?"
This was my first experience with astrology. When I was studying astrology, tropical astrology, modern astrology, and my teacher said, "Okay, now I told you everything." So
Right. It's wild. But when you think about your life, and how
well,
our lives, how complex they are, how beautiful they are, and how
yes.
the
And
level.
astrology, you never learn. You learn this forever. Never. It's never. Every day I learn from people's horoscopes. It's amazing how many things you discover in people's horoscopes, and then you learn and you learn and you learn new things.
Right.
And yes, also when you discover ancient texts, you see, my God, they knew so much more than we do know now.
Right. So do you know why? Like, what happened that we got that? I know we lost it. Did we lose it because we didn't deserve to have the knowledge, or?
You see, these are eras. It is like you see now. I will give you an example.
Mhm.
Take, for example, imagine this era of the opera musicians, Verdi, Puccini, these operas, they were a group of people who would make the most gorgeous music in the world, which until it was never repeated, right? It was one time. And you had Puccini, Rossini, Bellini, all these Italians. These were a group of friends in Italy that created the most beautiful opera. And guess why? Because Venus at that time rose for the first time for their era as an evening star, and in a place of, I forgot, either was exaltation or it was, but I mean, there is era for everything which is astrological. If we had the era of this gorgeous music and it was not repeated yet, it will be eventually one day. The same happened with astrology. You have it, you have this, you have it, then you have it forgotten. Then after hundreds or thousands of years, you have it completely gone. Then you have again revival due to certain astronomical configurations, like I gave you the example with the opera.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The same will be with the music. The music now is just terrible, but when you look what are the 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪𝙩 rises of Venus, she can't produce the music that Inanna from Uruk or not Athena Palas, but the evening Venus would produce. She's not this divinity. It's not yet here.
Right. And so if you're a musician, this is also a helpful hint about paying attention to when Venus is your friend. And so it's not just the eras, but it's also in our personal lives. If we can look at how these planets are transiting and interacting with us personally, that we can get these really direct instructions about when are going to be the very best days to do something, and what manner are they the very best to do them. There was an expression my mom used to say, God is in the details. And part of this reminds me really of that practice. It's like the precision of which you can actually make decisions for your best and highest good, and therefore the best and highest good for other people too, really is changed when you have an appreciation for and an understanding of your birth horoscope when it's done properly. So we still have lots of time to chat, but I just wanted everyone to get out a pen and a piece of paper, and also to think about what would be the first few questions you would ask a really excellent astrologer. If you could ask them any questions in the world, what would be the 3 top most important things that would help you to have a better life? Because I think once you start thinking about it, then these things will come to you and you'll understand the importance. That said, if the opera era was back then, what era are we in now, Krasi?
Yes, I will tell you. Astronomically, I do not mean, you hear everywhere that we are entering the era of Aquarius. Well, this is true. We are not yet, though, in the era of Aquarius. Now, I don't want to make this complicated. I'll try to explain it in as simple as I can. The era that we are in now is still under Pisces. Pisces, when it started with Christ, and this was 2000 years ago. But these years we count on the zodiac, not following the direction of the zodiac, but just the opposite. So we're still in Pisces, but we're in the 5th degree of Pisces. So we count 5, 4, 3, and so on. But these 5 degrees that we still have in Pisces are considered last degrees, because in only 5 degrees, which are how many years? 300 something, 360 years, we will indeed enter the era of Aquarius. But this is what I want to tell you with this. We divide again and again and again. In astrology, there are cycles within cycles, with forever. So even 1 year is a cycle. Your month is a cycle within cycle within cycle. And when we divide these cycles of Pisces, we entered approximately, I'm saying approximately because we're talking about a very large, great year of 25,000 years. So we say approximately, in the year 2015, we entered the mini cycle, the mini era of Mars. Mars is associated with what? Disharmony, plague, destruction, diseases, wars. That is why no opera now. We have to, you see, well, we talk symbolically. There is opera, but where is Verdi? I want Verdi.
It might be very discordant opera, right? Discordant opera, I said. That's not.
Yes. Yes. So I mean, we're living in the mini era of Mars, and that's why we experience, these harmonies. And people know what, I will not go into this. 5 more degrees to go, 4 and something degrees to go, and then we will be entering in 340-50 years the era of Aquarius. Why we say it's Aquarius now? We feel these energies because this is end of time. If one great cycle is the great astronomical year is 25,000 years, we divide it into 12, the 12 zodiacal signs, and we get 2000 something. So the year of Pisces indeed is, as we know, 2000 something years. So you can see why these 300 years are nothing. It's just really end of times, and we already feel the wind of Aquarius. That's why we talk about new technology. We talk about living in communities, or building communities, farm communities, and these things.
Yeah, it's the going back to the farming communities. That's very interesting. I think that is very, very interesting. Going back to the land, I see a lot of my friends, me included, going, wow, I can't believe that we got off the homesteads. Everyone's crying to get back to them. So it's a wonderful time. It's a little bit of a treacherous time as well. How can people recognize in themselves when they're resisting moving from maybe that Piscean, maybe just describe the difference between Pisces and Aquarius? That might help. Because when I think of Pisces and Christ, I think about sacrificial lamb, turn the other cheek, that kind of putting up with tolerating a lot of stuff.
Well, yeah, this one too. Yeah, obviously, yes, obviously this one too. But it is also what people say, what everyone speaks, and it became cliche already. Awakening, great awakening. Well, yes, great awakening. This is also Aquarius, but awakening is what? Awakening is to find out who you are, You are creator. You are a child of the creator. You create. You are just great being who can create. So this is what we find out approaching the era of Aquarius. Religious is man-made, and we will be reaching this point when we are finding out that there is one religion, which is really the Leah. I don't know if you hear me well because you're frozen.
Yeah, you're perfect.
You hear me?
Yes.
So religion, we find out that religion is man-made. That era of Aquarius is about finding ourselves, finding who we are, connecting with our, with the creator. And also there is this negative part, of course, of Aquarius, which would be the artificial intelligence, a lot of technology, or choosing to be the creator. So not necessarily being a victim, like you said for Pisces, this victim perception of yourself.
Yes, needing to go to an external authority to make any sort of decisions for oneself, I think, has also been a part of that whole Piscean reality.
But one key thing here, very fast, in Pisces, the time would move slower the way we perceive it. Aquarius is about sudden changes and surprises, and it means stay awake. Stay awake. You will be. It is indeed to be alert for everything happening around us. To be careful with media. This is. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Let's not forget that this is the Lord of Change, and it is the Lord in the ancient god Anu who is ruling the cosmos. So the real astrology is coming out, the real knowledge of the universe. A lot of knowledge will be revealed more and more in the age of Aquarius, the more we approach it.
Yes, it is really exciting because the opportunity to actually grasp onto reality and enter a state of sanity is right here for us if we decide that we want to actually take that path. The internal sanity of understanding that we are connected to God, that we have a full conduit to God when we kind of get out of the insanity of our thoughts and we just listen to that and hear what we're supposed to be doing for ourselves. So I love that you said that about awakening, because that is what I think too, is that we know what we're supposed to be doing. It's just there's so much other noise in our heads and in our hearts often, and corruption for a variety of reasons, that it's hard to hear that. One of the things I've been encouraged by this last year of going through the compression, I'll call it, the compression of the COVID, that people are waking up to the reality that the people who they thought were going to take care of them and that they thought really cared about them, the government, etc., maybe doesn't quite care about them quite so much. And
good morning.
That's so the people who are clear, but the people who've been continuing to, sadly, masking and playing along with sort of those parlor games, that they're, I think that it's coming now to a point where it's getting even clearer for people, the choice that they need to make in order to be free human beings, and that to grab onto the creativity instead of the remote control. So that's turning on exactly. More. Although you can watch our show all day long because we're talking about good stuff, but but we're not talking about things that are going to we're talking about things that are uplifting and healing and about your health and well-being. And the opposite is true. People are trying to encourage you to do things that cause you physical pain and suffering, emotional pain and suffering, and mental pain and suffering. So this is it's a prime time, and we've been kind of lazy. We've sort of been lulled into, in a lot of developed countries, very lulled into thinking that everything is okay and safe, and it's not the case. Dissolving.
It was illusion.
So a lot more people finding a lot of life satisfaction, though, the people who are awake and alert, and finding out about the real astrology. You do some really unique things that I absolutely adore, and one of them is that you build talismans. Can you talk a little bit about that?
This is this is another very ancient way of, you see, in the ancient times, again, in Babylon, Egypt, Byzantium, Greek times, people would not wear the jewelry pieces just for beauty. They would have the purpose of the talisman. Every single thing on Earth is ruled by a planet or a star. every single gemstone, every single herb, just anything, everything is ruled by a planet or a star. And there is this ancient knowledge which is telling you which gem is ruled by which planet or a star. And then when we make a combination of the herb, we extract the essential oil too. And when we find the most appropriate astrological time when this planet or a star are very powerful, very happy on the sky, very highly dignified, then in this astronomical moment, there is, again, ancient ritual, which is to create from piece of jewelry, which is a combination of, also the metals, they also have their rulership, to create a talisman. What are the talismans? They serve either as a remedy for the chart. Let's say a person would have not well placed or very weak Venus, and you see that this person is not, say, experiencing joy as it should be, in the full understanding of joy. Then Venus talisman, Venus is the planet that is afflicted in the horoscope, and Venus is the planet that will bring this remedy. So this is how you can use the talismans. The same is for the other planets. Or simply, you like to, let's say, there are the 4 royal stars, which bring certain royal, because they're very powerful, visible on the sky. So then you can use these planetary starry celestial configurations and use this star to aid your chart or to help you achieve what you want. Now, they are not changing really your destiny. I believe now, when we have more and more knowledge, and when we understand our horoscopes, actually we have the power to a certain degree to change a lot our destinies, and the talismans can help. Well, yes.
Yeah, and
this is how they, in short, work.
Yeah, and they're beautiful. And I think that the beauty in the ones that you make, Krasi, is that there is this very intentional approach to it all. So for you fast, you know, when you say the word highly dignified, you actually mean that. It's a very noble and reverent. It's this reverent process that you use. And one of the, it's why it resonated so much with me is that I grew up with a lot of reverence around nature, you know, everything from picking berries out in the bush and, you know, turning those into the things that we would eat, preserving things like doing artisan sort of work. Yeah, just it's a completely different thing than going to the mall and picking out a pair of earrings. So, you know, but there are royal people who have long-term power and affluence use crystals, use amulets, use these gemstones for their best and highest good. So when it's done in a highly dignified manner for good purposes, it's a reminder to you when you look at that thing and you hold it or you contemplate upon it, whether it's a ring or an amulet or a wand or whatever it is, but you contemplate upon it. So you think about, or you relax, maybe even more into, wow, it's like I'm really connected with nature. I really know that God does have my back, that there is a divine plan for me and that it's unfolding in perfect timing, but you just become reverent about it. And that's what some of these touchstones are. And is that the touchstone allows to ground you. And, you know, so they're very, very powerful when they're used intentionally and consciously. And yeah, so I love them. I think they're just a very, very beautiful way to get reconnected with nature. And you teach people how to do that.
Yes. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. The other thing is that this is why we spoke in the beginning, and you said people find the astrology occultistic, occult science. Well, yes, you can you can always use it for good and for bad, as you can see. But also, this is connection between astrology and natural sciences. So it is really something very, very beautiful. Yes.
Yes, it is. It is. So it's a very multi-layered thing: astrology, astronomy, the natural sciences, and an invitation for everyone who's looking at getting back to nature and their own power and control over their life. But understanding also that sometimes I think God sends us these things, that we get lessons in our life to make us stronger, or to make us more humble or more merciful or more compassionate. Because if we don't really have any challenges, sometimes we can be pretty self-absorbed. Is that part of the reason for the for the things that seem to come out of the blue? Is that part of what's going on there, Krasi, from your experience?
You know, I think this is Arab saying. I was reminded, Arab friend told me this, that too much light will blind you, too much darkness will blind you too. It's not good to live in a perfect environment. And also how we cannot distinguish the beauty when we do not know what darkness is, right? When we don't, how can we be experiencing joy when we do not know what is grief? Or unfortunately, this is how the universe, or at least our universe, works.
Yeah. So there
is
direct
perfect balance. Yeah. If we now, I think, you know, Leah, just to tell you this, if we feel now that there is too much darkness, which is overwhelming our reality, always the laws of universe are such that balance will be achieved. No matter what, no matter when, we may need to be patient. Balance will be achieved.
Right. So hang in there. That's what the other message. Hang in there. Because I think a lot of people are struggling. You know, they don't know what to do. There's a lot of tension and a lot and a lot of people feeling like they have no control because they can't travel, they can't move, they can't hug, or they feel like they can't hug. I have a confession. I have not owned a mask since this thing began. But I actually
forget.
That's right. But it's part of my own spiritual alignment, is just going, that's not for me. And
that's not for me. No,
right.
No, absolutely. Well, you see, there is a free will. Obviously, there is a free will. If there was no free will, they would have completely overwhelmed us with violence, and they just can't. And we agree and we allow. We agree. We shouldn't agree, I believe. We shouldn't go in open fight, because it's also not very wise. But we just can't agree with everything, only because we can't travel. Because we lived in illusionary environment, and we do not want to lose our comfort zone, and then we would agree on any poison in our bodies. But I do think that better not to live in this comfort zone for a while, because eventually they will lose. This is a big battle ongoing now on the sky and in our reality. So I would say to people, wait, have patience, wait with the poison. There is astrological reason for this too, but maybe for another time, Leah, because it's very long. Right. But I would say wait. Yeah, I would say don't hurry. This is a momentary situation, and the universe always reaches the balance. There is no other way out. No other way. The balance will arrive.
Yes, it will. So let's try and do what we can to be on the right side of that equation for our best and highest good. I want to encourage people to actually go to your channel, and we'll put, again, the link in our show notes, because you just did a very recent interview with a fellow, I'm going to get his name wrong, but it was the forecast. Oh, sure. Oh, so
he's great. Yes.
Look for this, because it's a very fascinating interview. I loved it. And so look for that, because it gives a little bit of a forecast about some things between now and 2024. So for people who want to delve a little deeper, or even around money, things around, finance, etc., that is a very fascinating interview. And of course, we'll talk more on our upcoming interviews about all of this wonderful stuff, but I don't want people to miss out on things while they're waiting for us to get more content together, because you have so much great content already on your channel. So let's get people over there to look at that great episode. Yes. And so we need to wrap with this episode for today. What's the most important takeaway, do you think, for people right now, Krasi, from your opinion?
To remember that they are creators, not to lose their unique essence, of human beings. We are able to create in one along with the creator. No one can tell you what to do. No one can tell you put poison in your body. No one, just remain very connected with the creator. I'm not saying this positive thinking, new age cliche. I'm just saying that we, with our thoughts, we also create our reality, because the speech and the thoughts are extremely powerful. So with our thoughts, with our speech, we can create beautiful reality without fears, because the fears are also being projected on us through media, and no need. We can avoid this just simply by deciding not to follow.
Exactly. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. And spend time with people who uplift you and who have messages of, encouragement. I think to turning off the TV, getting away from the mind trash is really good. Your mind leads your energy. This is like Master Your Life. The mind leads the energy. The mind leads the chi. The mind leads your prana, your life force. So that minding your mind is so important, and releasing yourself from thinking and go into your heart. Is exactly what Krasi is saying, is like, connect with your heart. That's where all the divine wisdom is. Again, Krasi, thank you so much. It's been a delight.
Thank you, Leaha. Pleasure.
I invite everyone to love yourselves, love each other, mind your mind. That's all for us for this episode. Bye for now.
Thank you for being a part of our program today. Master Your Life is a presentation of Leaha Mattinson Enterprises, Inc. Join us next time on Master Your Life, helping you to discover the very best of you.